Okay, on this episode of Building the X Set, we are going to go over internal wastegates, and specifically those on Chinese turbochargers. One of the issues with these wastegates is basically you never know what you're going to get as far as spring pressure inside here. This one I've found, was listed at about a 7 to 25 PSI adjustable wastegate. When it says adjustable, that doesn't mean the spring's adjustable. That generally means there's a threaded rod here that you can basically set the preload of the wastegate. So now what I'm going to show you in this video is an attempt at modifying this to lessen the spring rate without actually opening the can here. So what we're going to do here is first I'm going to show you with my air compressor hooked up to the actuator hose here, is I'm going to show you about where it starts open. Basically what I'm going to do here now first is I have about, let's see here, let's put about 8 pounds of pressure into this wastegate. Now when this hits, you'll see this rod move just barely. See, there's just a slight push in the rod, and that is about 9.5 pounds of pressure. So if you can imagine this rod controlling that wastegate actuator, it is just barely moving the wastegate flapper open at all. Now let's go ahead and try this out a different way. Let me move my adjuster here. Let me go up to, let's go with 13 PSI. Now let's see how much it moves. Quite a bit more, but still, that's only a minimal amount of movement and not opening that that door near enough. So now I'm going to really bump it up, and we're going to go to like, say 20. Okay, this is about 18 PSI. Sorry about the compressor noise there. Now let's see how this rod moves. There you can see there's quite a bit of movement from it there. Now let's go ahead and just bump it up another one, and let's see. I don't know, let's go to 26 PSI. Now you can see that is really going to be opening that flapper valve. And this is the problem. When I tested this before the video, I was seeing close to 30 PSI until this actuator rod reached its full extension, actually opened the wastegate all the way. So never in a million years is my car going to handle the boost to where I could actually bleed off all of the pressure through the wastegate. So in order to counteract this, there's two ways of doing it. Basically, you can do like me. You can leave the turbo wastegate flapper door open part of the way and allow it just to constantly bleed off boost so it can't overboost by the time it hits red line. That's what I was doing. However, you'll get horrible spool up. I was seeing about 5 PSI by 4,500 RPMs. I should be seeing 5 PSI by 3,000 RPMs. And I should about by 3,500 be seeing the 10 PSI and holding that to the red line. But the way this actuator is, it's not going to work. So now I'm going to show you guys a modification that can be done to this to basically make the wastegate think this has a less tension spring inside of it and open sooner. Okay, so basically what this entails here is I just went down to Ace Hardware and grabbed a few different springs. I don't know what size these are. There was just like 17 through 42, and I just picked like a 17, 19, and a 40 or something. I really have no idea which one of these is going to work. It's like $1.20 a spring, so you're not really going to be out a bunch of cash just trying a few out. Basically, grab a couple springs, grab a couple washers that you must make sure that they will slip over the actuator rod. 2 washers, and then you're also going to grab 2 extra nuts to lock this in place. And basically what you're going to do is we are going to put a washer on the can first, and you probably don't need to do this. I just did it because there's a real narrow spot here, and this small spring could fit through there. So I just went ahead and putting a washer on the bottom here. And then I don't know which spring is the stiffest. I kind of wanted to try that stiffest one first. I'm going to try this one first. So now first off, we're going to put that spring on, and we are going to put the next washer on. Okay, so basically, if you can see this black mark right here, that's actually how far this rod, it will actually screw. It needs to screw into about there to have the proper preload, meaning the flapper is shut, and then I have to actually pull this rod to get it over that flapper, because I want to make sure that at rest, this is actually holding that flapper door shut on the wastegate so it can build the proper boost. So now, the theory behind this is when you put this on here, this is actually already extending the rod. The spring part is here in the wastegate, and then there's an air diaphragm here. And so what happens is the boost pressure comes through here, and it will push this diaphragm, therefore compressing the spring and shooting this rod out. So the idea is you're already pulling this rod out some from the actual wastegate actuator by using the tension on this spring to pull it out. The nice thing about this with the rod, it's actually adjustable. So you have some variation with this spring because you can compress it more and have, I would assume it would put more tension on it to where it pull the rod out even further, or you can have less, or you can completely change to a different spring. So let's go ahead and just try this. I have it just set at the minimal setting with this spring. You can always cut these springs down to some to help it fit on better. Just a little bit of adjustment. Every one of these is going to be completely different. So let's go ahead and get the compressor hooked up again, and let's try it at 8 PSI now and see how much of a difference it made. Well, that's much better than the 8 PSI before, but it is still not going to be quite enough to suit my needs. So I'm going to go ahead and pull this down some more, and I'm going to thread this screw down even further. So let's see if that made a difference. I don't know if it did or not. Okay, so let's try 12.5 pounds. That is actually quite a difference. I would say that is almost what we were getting in the mid-20s. Okay, so now I ended up taking a wrench and I actually got this adjusted as tight as it can possibly go. So now we're going to see what kind of difference this makes. Okay, we're at about 8.5, let's say 10 PSI right now. Let's see if that made any more of a difference. I think that made a little bit of difference. So what I'm going to do, it's pretty obvious that this is not so much determined by the tension on the spring, more as the stiffness of the spring to begin with. So I'm going to go ahead and put this on the car. The other piece I have is another nut here, and basically this is going to go on here, and this is going to be basically just, you know, 2 nuts here, and it'll be working as a lock nut. Okay, so to give you guys a little better idea, this is it on the car here. Basically I got my spring assembly on here on the actuator. Actually I had to remove all that to get it onto the mount for the actuator, but same idea. Now basically this is my my wastegate here. This is the little arm for it, and this is controlling the flapper valve inside. Now before my wastegate, this is completely closed here. Before it was set to probably about there. And basically that was just allowing that little door to stay open and bleed off the excess pressure down into the downpipe. So now what I want is I want the wastegate here completely closed, but I do also want to apply a little tension to that. And then you can see about here is, about right there is actually about perfect, but I'm going to go ahead and go a couple more turns shallow of that, because I want to actually have some tension on the rod there. Now here I'm going to actually put this over, and I'm going to lock this on, not that the arm moves anyways. And then there's a little C-clip that goes on here to reinstall, and then I'm going to go out and take it for a test drive here in a minute, and then I am going to show you guys my data log results from before this modification and now after.